reported this to Ivanov, and I've been feeling a little updated. Tula tried to ignore the way he phrased this. He knows about the possible Manila connection? Not yet. If we could turn it into an excuse for more pavement pounding, Tula suggested, it might help us. Help you how? Help us. She realized she kind of wanted to kill him. She was sure that the feeling had passed, but she was also sure that it would come back. Do whatever you want, she said, and walked away. Are you insane? Ivanov asked him. Sokolov was honest. Ivanov liked it. Sokolov was insane. So, he said. The nothing that they fairly summarized what these gentlemen of superiors wanted their subordinates to do for them. But Ivanov had insisted on hearing everything in great detail. And so, after suffering quite a few interruptions, Sokolov had settled into a much more detailed storytelling style, and Ivanov had listened carefully all the way through the account of the shopping expedition, taking the concierge, and walking home along the waterfront. It would not be the first time Sokolov had been tongue-lashed by the boss, so he just stood there at attention and waited for it. Ivanov laughed. I do not care, he said, what the fucking buildings are made of, whether the walls can or cannot be penetrated by pillars or buckshot, about the options for escape in the event of a tactical retreat. What the fuck are you thinking, Sokolov? Are you thinking that this is the siege of Grozny? This is not the siege of Grozny. It is very simple. Find the troll, go to where he lives, enter his apartment, take him out of there, and bring him to me. Sokolov had nothing to say. Did I hire the wrong guy? That is possible, sir, Sokolov said. Those guys you found in Seattle, the ones who did Wallace, they are more the type for this kind of job. Well, those guys in Seattle are not here, Ivanov said, crescendoing during that sentence from a mild conversational tone to a shout that could detonate stored ammunition. Instead, I have you, and you are extremely expensive guys out there. Sokolov might have pointed out that he and his expensive guys were security consultants, and that Ivanov had lately been asking them to do some pretty weird things, but he didn't see how it would improve Ivanov's mood. Another thing, Ivanov continued, what the fuck was the point of coming back along the waterfront? Are you under the impression that the troll lives in a ferry terminal? Reconnoitering the ground, Sokolov said, getting to know the field of operations. Ivanov was nonplussed. The ground, the field of operations, is where the troll lives, and he doesn't live in a ferry terminal. Sokolov said nothing. I don't get it, Sokolov. Explain your thinking to me. Tactical maneuver in this city is going to be nearly impossible, Sokolov said. He nodded out a window. Just look at it. All the space is taken up. But the water is a different story. It's crowded, yes, but it's the only option we've got if we need to... To what, Sokolov? To fall back, improvise, move creatively. There was now a silence of perhaps 30 seconds, as Ivanov marshaled every resource of energy and strength at his disposal to control his rage. Sokolov wasn't the least bit worried about what would happen when Ivanov lost that struggle and moved the stack. He was much more worried about what was going on in the boss's circulatory system in the meantime, for during all their comings and goings today, he had managed to spend a few minutes on some hotel lobby internet terminals, and he had confirmed that Ivanov was on 2 varieties of blood pressure medication, assuming, of course, that he was still actually taking his pills. So what really worried Sokolov was that this visible struggle to hold in his fury was driving Ivanov's blood pressure up to levels normal. done during the entire interview. It was not merely that Ivanov thought a backup plan was unnecessary. He actually thought Sokolov was up to something fishy. Sokolov's interest in a backup plan made him actively suspicious. But Sokolov was not about doing some tactical maneuvering, some falling back even here. He shrugged, as if the backup plan remark had been mere whimsy. Anyway, he said, I've got an idea. Yes? What kind of idea? Sokolov took a few steps over to the window and looked down toward the waterfront. It was only about 7 in the evening, and so people were still flooding and surging by the thousands in and out of the ferry terminal's gates. Ivanov turned to the window as well, tried to see whatever it was that Sokolov was looking at. Yes, Ivanov prompted him after a few moments. I can't see any just now, Sokolov said. They are not that numerous compared to the commuters, the students, and so on. Who are these people you can't see any of? Fishermen. They would use a different terminal, Ivanov growled. No, I'm not speaking of commercial fishermen. I mean hobbyists, anglers. I saw a few of them earlier, just regular Chinese guys, retirees. They were coming home from a day out fishing. I suppose on one of those little islands out there. He turned to Ivanov and caught his eye. They wear funny hats. I have seen them. Woolly hats, Ivanov said. No, not those. The guys I'm talking about wear huge hats made out of light-colored cloth. Big bills sticking out the front to keep the sun off their faces, with skirts hanging down the sides and the back all the way to the shoulders, like what an Arab would wear in a sandstorm. The head and face are almost totally hidden, or so if they wear big sunglasses. They sit out in the sun all day, Ivanov said, getting it. You can't hold a parasol while you are fishing. The other thing about them is that they have these fancy cases to hold their rods. Sokolov held his hands about a meter apart, indicating the length. With a bulge at one end to make room for the reel. Ivanov's face relaxed, and he began to nod. Better yet, Sokolov said, each one of them is carrying a little oar. Perfect, Ivanov said. Everyone. You are fishing. Yes. The other thing about them is that they have these fancy cases to hold their rods. Sokolov held his hands about a meter apart, indicating the length. With a bulge at one end to make room for the reel. Ivanov's face relaxed, and he began to nod. Better yet, Sokolov said, each one of them is carrying a little oar. Perfect, Ivanov said. Everyone ignores these guys. Of course, Ivanov said. Just like you or I would ignore an old fisherman on a bridge in Moscow. Sometimes you see one all alone, Sokolov said. But it's not unusual for them to travel in a group. They'll hire one of those boats to take them to their favorite fishing hole. I see. Now, we can't walk around all day in such costumes without someone figuring out that we are not Chinese, Sokolov said. But we don't need to. We just need to get from a vehicle into a building, or to walk down a street for half a block, without every fucking Chinese person in a kilometer radius taking phone pictures of us and calling home to Mama. Very good, Ivanov said. Very good. Sokolov decided not to mention his other observation, which was that the only other category of person who went completely ignored were the beggars who lay down flat on the ground in crowded pedestrian districts. We will make a plane, Ivanov said. One plane. And it will work. There'll be no more talk of backup plans. Yes, sir. Bring in the others, Ivanov said. We will discuss and make preparations for tomorrow. They had all, founders, executives, engineers, creatives, toilers, and weird stuff, been trying to think about big long-term issues raised by the war of realignment. Without a doubt, T-Rain was making money from the war in the short term, but the question that was bothering the hell out of all of them was, will it last? Because they had been making money before, when the story of the world had actually made sense, Now it had mutated into something that seemed to lack exactly the kind of coherent, overarching narrative